My name is Ian Keaveny. I work under the name GLITČH. I'm 57 years old, and at the moment I work as an artist full time. I was born in the UK, in the Midlands, the West Midlands. I live in Ireland. I moved to Ireland in 1992 with my then girlfriend. Lived in a van. I was a New Age traveller then. I've since become settled, and I've lived around County Offaly since I actually moved to Ireland in 92. I live in a very rural area, so there's a lot of farms around me, so not a lot of people living around me, which is the way I like it. I don't like living in towns. But yeah, the countryside is not a place of sweetness and light. It's a very matter-of-fact place. When I'm walking the dogs down the roads, there's quite often dead animals, dead rats, dead birds, things like that. And you know when you pass fields full of cows or lambs or sheep that there's only one purpose, and they're just there to be grown, to be taken to a slaughterhouse. So that I think that actually has quite a deep effect on what I'm doing. Kind of, I take a very bleak view of humanity generally, I think. But yeah, and the other aspect of living in the countryside is not being around lots of people. It's good for me because it gives me time to think and not be overly caught up in the hurly-burly of other people's lives. I like to be able to observe and watch and think, and it takes me a lot longer than most people to do that. So that's kind of cool. And the communities that I work in are basically online. There's one group that I talk to in Ireland, just started talking to in the last 6-7 months, who work with digital art, not necessarily glitch art, but digital art in general, and critical tech issues, so more, I suppose, the politics of technology. Access questions like that. So that's kind of interesting. The main communities I work with are online, not in Ireland, international, I suppose, or no state. And that's pretty much, I think, how glitch art is. If glitch art was a country, you wouldn't be able to find it. You wouldn't be able to find it on a map. It's just so disparate. And that's kind of the way that networks work, really. And I like that. My work has lots of different threads to it at the moment. It's kind of taking more of a political bent because I started having problems with platforms like Instagram being shadow banned. Just looking at the number of people who make glitch art and are finding that their reach is being reduced just because of the way algorithms work, and that kind of strikes me as being interesting. As definitely as through anecdotal evidence, it seems to be happening to more and more people. In the truest sense, it's an autocracy, an oligarchy, a kakistocracy. So I think I'll be moving more and more away from American platforms to European hosted or Fediverse platforms in the next year. I'm working on a big piece at the moment, this is based on repurposing old Nazi propaganda films, and this one especially has run through various glitch art processes that I've discovered over the few years. I've talked about them before, so I don't really need to talk about them again. And but basically taking Nazi propaganda films and de-propagandizing them by glitching them and taking out any symbols of Nazism and basically obscuring faces, just so we turn them into this strange kind of collection of old faces. I have to actually take that symbol out there. I hadn't noticed that one. Took a lot of editing just to get it to this phase. So yeah, I kind of like the idea of having huge crowd scenes of faceless people, but there's no narrative there anymore. It's just people marching around. And because I've taken the sound off it as well, it kind of depowers the sound of the voices, the ranting. Because if you look at fascists and the way they talk, a lot of it is ranting in a very purposeful way. I mean, they're not doing this blindly, they know what they're doing. But to see this kind of thing rising again in the 21st century after everything that happened before, it's just not scary, it's just astonishing. It's just, my God, we have to fight these battles all over again. I suppose one of the ways that I'm looking at my work at the moment is how can I use that as a tool rather than having arguments with people online, which I don't think works. How can we do that through glitch art, which is inherently political, as I say, in the first place? There's a few other things. Yeah, I'm very interested in using, as people have probably heard before, the desktop as a feedback loop. I just realised I have to mute that. That was a problem before. So, working very heavily using Linux and the X11 system to create these feedback mirrors and loops on the desktop, and done various videos based around that. And words. I'm very interested in words for some reason. So it's automatically generating these texts by using something called, is it Dada? Dada, yeah, that's it. Which mashes up texts, and then I use my own scripts to collide the text itself. I have often thought it'd be fun to take kind of religious texts and patch them together. But yeah, you don't want to mess with the religious nuts because they head the ball, basically. What is my approach to the experiments in the domain of glitch art? Which blah, 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 methods and tools to use? I use basically open source software, and I believe that anything that I discover I should share with people. So I have a Codeberg repository, and I share the scripts that I create there. And I also write a blog, and that's kind of where I write up a lot of the stuff that I think about, the philosophy behind what I do. So I'm an admin of Glitch Artist Collective, so obviously I'm collecting loads of stuff all the time and putting that onto the Glitch Artist Collective Tumblr. Go follow it. Yeah, so screenshots, constantly taking screenshots. And that was from last year. Oh, that was another background I was using. It's a bigger one. So I make videos and I'll take stills from them, and they'll end up being posted online at some point. So hardware is kind of important to me because quite often using old hardware, you'll find strange glitches. So I'm constantly experimenting with older hardware. This is another part of the project that is going into an exhibition in Malta next year. This is the long version. So this is a combination of techniques. First is displacement maps, so displacing Triumph of the Will against another film by Hedy Lamarr called Ecstasy, which is quite a famous film. Hedy Lamarr famously was very anti-Nazi and actually worked on the technology behind Wi-Fi and came up with a very, very incredible person. So to mash two films together, Triumph of the Will, directed and filmed by Leni Riefenstahl, who's a fascist collaborator basically with the Nazis in the Second World War, even though she denied it, she was, versus the very anti-Nazi Hedy Lamarr, I think is kind of interesting. I publish all my work under a Creative Commons license because I believe that knowledge should be shared. So any videos I make, any images that I make can be downloaded and shared by anyone, or remixed, more importantly. I think countering fascism, alt-right Nazis, whatever you want to call them, is by having an open democratic sharing system where we can share code, share ideas, share images, video in a free and open way. And so, yeah, I've got this selection of tarot cards that I found which you can use online. So I've always been really interested in tarot, and it's actually one of the kind of building blocks going all the way back 30 odd years to when I first did my foundation that I use as an underlying kind of reasoning behind what I do. But I suppose in a way at the moment I'm trying to make some kind of glitch tarot set, but that's a long-term goal, as you'd see. I mix them all together using a gridding software that I've created with other stuff that I've come up with. I've made a whole set of collage cards, which are like a semic in meaning. I mean, they don't have meaning, they have meaning to me, image-wise. It's an interesting thing when you start working with images only. So I've been combining those into different, they're very tiny things there, you don't need those. And you can see very, very pixelated. It's just playing with how small you can go with an image and it's still being readable. Aha, so as you can see from this one, I'm trying to develop tarot cards which have meaning to me. One of my projects at the moment is trying to get thrown off Instagram, so a lot of these images are trying to see if I can provoke the algorithm into throwing me off. So there's elements in there which I wouldn't usually use in my work, but are interesting. So I'm using AI to take my own work as a source, and then using image to text to generate new works, and working within those constraints. Yeah, they started off a few years ago, actually, making this strange hybridized alphabet, which is a semic, but the symbols themselves are interesting. Well, the images are interesting. So it's words cut up, or letters cut up to make some different kind of alphabet. And then they become... So yeah, these are just collage cards that I've made myself, stuff that I'd started a couple of years ago and then left aside, then looked at again, thought, oh, that could be interesting. I'm always interested in the idea of communication, how visual art communicates, and then almost the impossibility in this day and age of communicating with anybody through words, because words are so easily misinterpreted. These are from different combinations of, actually, the text is from a Windows 3.1 manual, which I found fascinating. Just reconstructing that. So yeah, and then I took those and then put those through my glitch process. And they're a combination of about 3 or 4 different book sources. So they're the letters that I'd cut up, pasted with backgrounds from a Victorian book from 1901 with a modern computer manual. Modern, but the computer manual was from 91, 92, so modern-ish compared to the Victorians, positively modern. Yeah, and then I'd take those and turn them into these assemblages of images, and they become more and more glitched as we go along. So just mashing things together until I find some visual sense in them that I like, or some symmetry that I like. And that's pretty much it. And I think that's where I'll stop.